800 years after Christ, powerful forces rose in the north. Food was plentiful. The people were strong and tall. Their numbers grew. The people of what is now known as Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Iceland prospered, and they began to look beyond their borders. They became master craftspeople, producing weapons for war as well as beautiful jewelry, fine woven goods, detailed carving, and means of food preservation to carry them through the winters. The people established systems for making laws and handing out justice. They prided themselves on their artistry, storytelling, strength, adventuresome spirit, and fearlessness. But most important to the history of the world was the development of what came to be known as the Viking ship. The ship's design allowed them to be rowed or sailed. They were elegant and sturdy, with a shallow draft that allowed them to travel down rivers or across oceans. Their clinker-built construction added to their stability and relative ease of handling. Their development made a period of Scandinavian expansionism possible and showed other nations how domination of the waterways could lead to domination of nations. The Vikings set out in these great ships, first as warriors, then on trading missions, and later with settlers, including women, children, and domestic animals. The Vikings traveled as far north as Svalbard, east to Corum on the Silk Road, south to Baghdad, through the Black Sea to Constantinople, down the western coast of Europe, through the Mediterranean Sea to Alexandria. They formed large settlements in Normandy, Ireland, the Faroe Islands, the Shetland Isles, Scotland, Iceland, and Greenland. Besides plundering for riches or being paid to stay away, they traded both in materials and in knowledge, taking home with them new skills and goods. In their open ships, they chose routes that took them west, from one island to the next, minimizing their exposure to the unforgiving North Sea. They were guided by the stars, expert seamanship, physical prowess, and the drive to find new lands. They made seemingly impossible journeys. Another 1,000 years later, Viking Canadian history has come alive in British Columbia. People of Scandinavian descent make up about 10% of the population of BC, and for many years there was talk of building a Viking ship. During the year 2000 millennium celebrations of the landing of the Vikings in Newfoundland, talk turned from the verbalization of a dream into the reality of the BC Viking Ship Project, headed by a committee of the Norwegian House Society.
Well, I think it was a wonderful idea to recreate history and also to get it as close as possible to the original ships that sailed in those days. So that to me was the biggest thing, the recreation of the Viking ship.
By the spring of 2000, master boat builder Christian Frostad was in place to head up the project with assistance from two other master boat builders, Arne Frostad and Raymond Bardsnes, three men who immigrated to Canada from the same Norwegian village of Tomrefjord. Volunteers had started the process of publicizing the dream, recruiting volunteers, looking for materials, soliciting donations in cash or in kind.
The highlights were really, we had people of all different ages from very young. The children were interested, but also, we had people, 82 years old working every day on it, 92 years old showing up.
I was rather surprised to see the number of people who turned out with an interest of one sort or another, either Scandinavian background or whatever.
Companies coming on board, companies like Big Rock Homes, people just coming out saying, this is exciting, this is great. For me, it was an ongoing thing, seeing that whole community building thing.
Took an interest in this launching. Boats are commonplace around Vancouver, but you don't see too many Viking ships.
The Viking Ship Project became a reality. They decided to build a half-size replica of the Viking ship Gokstad. The original, built around 890 AD, is preserved in a museum in Oslo, Norway, and has been successfully replicated and sailed. The Gokstad is 80 feet in length. Theirs would be 40 feet.
Because an 80-foot boat, I felt that it would be too big to move around and too big to handle. And for what we're going to be using this ship for, we don't need an 80-foot boat. We're not going to Hawaii or to Europe or anywhere else, you know. So it's a ship that I feel is probably the ultimate symbol of our heritage.
The motto was shipbuilding is a community event.
And the Scandinavian community truly rallied around the project, giving very generously of their time and making a lot of donations. And the word soon spread to involve people from all over the lower mainland. And indeed, through our website and network of contacts, we have reached out literally to the world.
Well, I knew it was going to be a lot of people there, but I didn't realize it was going to be that many.
Viking ships reached the pinnacle of lapstrake, clinker-built crafts. They amazed their contemporaries with their grace and speed. A new Viking ship invariably meant new adventures. The building, maintenance, and use of the Viking ship Munin is an ongoing adventure. Construction proceeded with the cooperation of the city of Burnaby, where the ship's home is at the Scandinavian Community Center. Munin would be 40 feet long, 9.5 feet wide, and built out of West Coast Douglas fir donated by Big Rock Homes, and fastened with hundreds of hand-hammered copper rivets. She would be sturdy with her almost inch-thick planking, yet ever so graceful with her two magnificent dragon heads carved by a local artist.
The Vikings used dragon heads, I think, to make the ships appear more fierce. Not all Viking ships had dragon heads, but I think the warships had. These heads were carved by my friend Iris Björki, and she goes by the artist's name of Munin, and she carved them for us in a very short time.
In September of 2000, the excitement grew as a public keel-raising ceremony was staged in the shed with a large gathering of enthusiastic supporters, including dignitaries such as the Norwegian Consul General Stein Gudmundset, MLA Fred Randall, and Burnaby City councillors. A Viking ship is built right side up, so temporary frames were set in place and wooden strips hammered along the lines where the planks would lie. The ship began to come to life, her lines etched like a skeleton. Necessary equipment began to appear, usually donated. With only a year available, the goal was to create a true replica for cultural and historic purposes. Power tools were used where appropriate to speed the construction.
You put pine tar on the edge, something like that. Okay. And then you put a string of cotton on there, like that. Take a copper rivet, and you drive it through from the outside to the inside. This is the right side up, of course. You drive it in, so you see squeezes the cotton in between. Then you put a washer on the inside, cut the rivet off, and hammer it over. Clinch it.
One strake followed the next, and slowly the skeleton disappeared and the ship became a solid entity.
My skills were just basically putting nails into wood and putting the rivets on, so it was very basic stuff. But watching the shipbuilders, how they set it up, how they could line things up with just by line of sight as opposed to working off a blueprint, it gives me a bit of a feel of how this kind of stuff was made. And I could probably make one myself, a smaller version of it, just by watching these guys.
Looking at the ship being built, it was just about finished at that time. It just caught my imagination. And in my background, we can trace our ancestry back to the 1600s in Norway. And my mother's side of the family is into shipping. So it caught my imagination. I thought my ancestors have gone into this, and I wanted to get involved.
Separate teams developed, one to build the 14 oars.
Some research went in, and we've got 14.5-foot long oars with a 4 to 4.5 inch blade with a spine or crown to make it stronger. That's the flat part where it catches the water. And I think everybody likes them pretty well.
Another to make wooden Viking-style shields with hand-wrought metal bosses, center hand grip, and painted in a traditional sunwheel design.
I became aware of the ship project when on one afternoon when I saw the placards announcing the project itself. I thought it would be interesting to build a shield. I in fact built a shield when I was about 13.
A team began to search out fabric and create clothing to make the presentation as authentic as possible.
What we're looking at here is at the stem of the front of the Munin. The planks are Douglas fir. They're about 3/4 of an inch thick, and they were given us by a company that builds log homes in Mission, Big Rock Homes. What they do is they have to get a log and they cut off four slabs to make it square. And so these are the slabs that they've cut off, which they would normally waste, and they gave them to us so that we can use them for the ship. The lead that we use for ballast on the ship was given to us by Cominco, the mine smelter in Trail, BC, and we have 3,000 pounds of lead. They are in 100-pound ingots. They're not very big, but they're very, very heavy. And we fit them into the keel, into the bilge in the bottom of the boat. And what that does, gives the boat more stability so that it doesn't tend to tip over as much. And that's what the Vikings in the original days would have put rocks in. And ballast is what it's called. And that's an interesting word because from Scandinavian, it means bar last, which means empty cargo. So when the ship is empty, you put empty cargo into it to give it the right weight.
All the while, detail work continued with seats built and installed and floorboards laid. June 22nd, 2001. The ship stood ready to be officially unveiled for the public. She was rolled out of the shed into the center of the soccer field. In the warm sunshine, her oiled wood glistened golden. Adorned with shields and oars, she was placed under cover and ceremoniously unveiled at the annual Scandinavian Midsummer Festival, which draws over 4,000 people and is organized by volunteers at the Scandinavian Community Center. A celebration of Scandinavian culture and experiences, the festival was an ideal time for the unveiling of the ship, which drew fascinated and proud viewers.
Hello, and welcome to the unveiling of the Viking.
Launch organizing proceeded at a frantic pace. Good news arrived. Norwegian Ambassador Ingvard Havnen would fly in from Ottawa especially for the launch and Maritime Museum exhibit opening. Protocol took a step up.
Yeah, this is quite extraordinary, and I am very, very impressed by the initiative by the Norwegian House Society and the Scandinavian Community Center. Very, very impressive.
Munin was christened by the next generation, the daughters and granddaughters of some of the builders. Together they christened the ship by throwing mead from horns onto her hull. In doing so, they accepted the ship as a gift to their generation, their city, their province, and their country.
We christen the Munin.
In the name of Thor, the great Viking god, this ship shall be named Munin. May she fare well.
She was christened Munin after one of the two ravens, Hugin and Munin, who in ancient Norse lore sat on the shoulders of the Norse god Odin, the god of knowledge and wisdom as well as the god of war. Odin dispatched the birds around the world to gather information for him. Hugin was associated with the concept thought, and Munin with the concept memory.
In my hometown, there was a Viking ship that went to England, and he was named Hugin. And of course, Hugin was my first choice for this ship here. But due to the spelling, I looked it up in a dictionary, and then I saw the other name, Munin. So I put both choices in the paper, and Munin come out as the winner.
Here's up, Arnie. How was it?
Very good. Yeah? Very good. A little bit uncoordinated, but otherwise all right.
Is it a good ship to...
Fabulous, absolutely.
So the challenge for the new crew out there is to actually be coordinated.
A culmination of quite a long year's worth of work. So it was really wonderful to finally be able to ride on our own Viking ship.
I'm used to rowing, but not a long ship like that, you know. So, but it was very much fun.
I've always had an interest in my Viking heritage, so when I learned about the Viking ship project, I jumped at it, and it's been great. You know, I've met a lot of new friends, and I never really knew how they constructed these ships, and of course now I do.
As the crew worked to get to know the ship and to get some coordination in their rowing, the red and white striped sail was ordered and a mast needed. Finally, an opportunity to cut their own timber for the ship. A group volunteered to hike out into the hills overlooking Maple Ridge and cut down a tall, straight Douglas fir of just the right size for a mast. Rope splicing had to be learned, the rigging worked out, a coin put in place for good luck, and the mast raised. Finally, in August, project supporters gathered once again at the harbor for the first raising of the sail. What a beautiful contrast their golden ship, with her red and white striped square sail, made against the high-rises of downtown Vancouver and the majestic mountains. This project has been nothing short of amazing, a thrilling example of what happens when a group of people with a dream and a vision combine their efforts towards a single goal.
Sailing over on one of those ships from Norway, Iceland to Canada, it's an amazing feat, and just to be on the ship itself is, you know, to think that they came that far on a boat like this, not much bigger than this one.
History tends to be unimportant to people nowadays, especially young people, I think. They tend to not have that connection, you know, not really, it's something that happened a long time ago. It doesn't have any bearing on the modern world, you know, and it's really very rewarding, very, very cool to be able to, you know, reach out and bring this stuff alive for them, you know, and really make it live and go, hey, wait a minute, this was really, really neat. We had one kid whose dad was trying to get him for years to take him sailing, right? And he had no interest in it at all until he came down to the ship launch and saw this Viking ship, you know, and by the end of that, he was asking his dad to take him sailing.
For the future, we're going to use it as a really exciting tool. This gives people a chance to get out there and experience Canadian history, not just Scandinavian history.
It's also a method of, I think, an alternative viable method of research. We have a lot of things where research is being done, where you pull things out of the ground, have a look at it, a couple quick guesses as to how it goes together. And if the theory is never challenged or used in the field, you really don't have the confirmation that is what happened. So when you build a project that's actually more than just a prop, more than just a model, something that actually works, you get an opportunity to test a lot of these theories and feel about whether that was actually the way it was.
Munin was completed on 100% volunteer time and with donations from individuals, societies, and companies. She represents the spirit of cooperation driven by respect for history, recognition of the need to pass knowledge on, and for the love of the sea. This ship is a gift to the community, a journey into history. May she be blessed and carry all who travel in her safely to harbor. May she enjoy a long life and be loved by many. May she bring joy and knowledge to all generations and peoples here in British Columbia and wherever she may travel.